Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name's Tony, and I want to help you learn how to design t shirts and other stuff, even if you have zero design experience. Today, I want to talk about 3 simple ideas for finding your first niche. This is going to be especially helpful if you're new to designing t shirts and you haven't been able to make a sale yet. I know a lot of people want to learn about the latest trends and what designs and slogans and phrases people are already doing well with and selling, the so called winning designs. And it's fine to worry about that sort of stuff after you've already established yourself. But I really believe in the beginning, you should be designing things that you really know a lot about. So that way you have a better insight into what's appealing about that design or phrase or saying or meme. So my first piece of advice is go with what you know. That may sound like common sense to a lot of you, but I know we do tend to overcomplicate things and start worrying about where the money is instead of worrying about where we could find money. So the first idea for coming up with your first niche is where you live or the place you grew up. You know a lot about these things because you've lived there every day. Maybe you live there currently. And there's certain things that are sentimental. So you say, what are the things people from that area would feel a connection with? Was there a certain type of food that was only available in your region? Were there certain cities that you would go to in the area? If you're narrowing it down to just a city, what are some of the landmarks in that city? There's a lot of different ways you can go with that. And I'll jump into some examples when I'm done with this part of the presentation, and then we can see exactly what will set you apart designing for a place where you lived or grew up. Number 2 is your cultural background. In broad strokes, I like to tend to think of this one as where your family's from. Like, are you Mexican American, Filipino American, Japanese American, African American? There are certain things in your culture that only people from that background would really understand and identify with. So from a cultural perspective, you'll be able to understand the intricacies of what goes on in the home, in the community. What are things that people find funny or have in common or can universally talk about? So my question when designing that are, what are some of the memes that are inherent in the culture? I would ask myself, what are some of our traditions? What are some of the things that everybody's parents tell them in that community? So these are the type of things that are maybe funny to you and your group of friends from the same culture, and other people just kind of goes completely over their head. But you're speaking to a certain audience here, and those are the only ones you need to get the joke. Third is a job or a hobby that you're involved in. The important word here is that you're involved in this thing, because I can make a shirt about nurses. I know nothing about being a nurse. I've never been a nurse, and I could just at best make a generic shirt. If I was a nurse, then I would know all the ins and outs of the job. If I had a hobby that I was super into, then I would know everything about it. So the question for this one is, what are some of the in-jokes, jargon, and minutia that you wouldn't know if you weren't part of the community? And those are the broad strokes of this, but let me show you a few examples of what I'm talking about, and hopefully that'll help you start selling shirts if you're having trouble right now. I grew up in an area of Southern California called the South Bay. Now, the South Bay is comprised of a bunch of different cities. Some of them are by the beach. Some of them are a little more inland. Some of them are affluent. Some of them are poor neighborhoods. So in an instance like this, I probably want to get more specific into certain areas of the South Bay. So like I might want to just target the beach cities, for example. And now if I go into Redbubble and look up South Bay Los Angeles t-shirts, there's 87 results. And most of these are pretty generic. This says Manhattan Beach. This one says Los Angeles. This one has the Inglewood City insignia. But none of these really, to someone from the area, speak to me in any way. This could say anything. This could say the name of a beach in Florida instead of Manhattan Beach. And I just feel zero connection to this because it's not something of the area. So the first thing I want to think about is, what are some of the things in the area? So I know in the South Bay beaches that the Redondo Beach Pier is a big landmark. I know that there's an area between the street and the beach called the Strand where people ride their bikes and go walking and roller skate. So I would target those type of things and get a little more specific. So again, if I look here, I'm looking on Amazon and I look up Redondo Beach. and I just see basically a bunch of generic shirts that say Redondo Beach. They don't speak to me in any way. They don't really make me feel anything towards Redondo Beach at all. These could say anything. So what I would want to do here is take a deep dive. The city I grew up in is called Gardena. And again, these just say Gardena, Gardena, Gardena. I don't think anybody who grew up or lived in Gardena would really feel anything by seeing these. Maybe the straight out of Gardena one, but that's been so overdone by now. Who knows? So if I were to design a shirt based on Gardena, here's what I would do. I would take the iconic foods that people in that area, everyone I grew up with, everyone who grew up before me, everyone who grew up there after I left would know. So we have torpedoes, Terry burgers, chicken tacos, and taco burritos. Anyone who grew up or lived in Gardena knows you go to Giuliano's and you get a torpedo sandwich. You go to Pit Burger, you get a teriyaki burger, or a Terry burger as they're known. You go to Josie's and you get their famous chicken tacos. The sign on the side of the wall says best chicken tacos in town. Or you go to the Burnt Tortilla and you get taco burritos. Now, whether you lived in Gardena, whether you grew up and moved away, you'd see something like this and it would remind you of a place that you love or a place that you live. It would remind you of a place that you grew up. It would remind you of all of the foods you grew up eating in Gardena. It might make you nostalgic. It might make you want something that connects you back to the place where you grew up. To me, that's much better than a shirt that just says Gardena, California. That's it for this one. I have a Facebook group linked in the description about design, about selling your shirts for critiques or reviews. I'd love to help. I'm always around. Keep on designing, and we'll see you on the next one.